Starting. All right, guys, if you would like to open cameras, that would be great. And hello to everyone. And thank you for joining us today. My name is Eran Golan. I'm from Madera Data Solutions. With me, we have Eitan Blumin, which is the head of DBA, our DBA team. And we have Richard Burke, who is a solution engineer from SolarWinds. Last meeting, we talked about why we need monitoring tools and gave you a few case studies. And today we will talk about two advanced monitoring systems, and we'll provide you some we'll showcase their technical view. Also, if you would like to receive our previous recording from the last session, we'll send it to you. And thank you again. I'm transferring this session to Eitan. Eitan Blooming, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Ron. Give me a second to share my screen here. Okay, then. You can see my screen, right? Good.
Yep.
Yeah,
okay.
we see it.
Okay. Right. Is it moving? No, it's moving. There you go. Thank you. Okay. Hello, and thank you for joining us in this today's technical showcase for both SolarWinds SQL Sentry, and we'll have DPA later presented by Richard. My name is Eitan Blumin. As Eran said, I'm a senior SQL Server consultant and DBA team leader at Madera Data Solutions. For those who don't know us, we're the leading Microsoft Data Platform consulting company in Israel and a longtime partner of SentryOne and SolarWinds SQL Sentry. And as such, we are an avid users and proponents of SQL Sentry. You can also see on the screen links to some of places where you can find me, my LinkedIn, my own website, Madera's official website, and we also have a podcast, the SQL Server Radio, that I co-host together with Guy Glanzer, the CEO of Madera. Right, so moving on. In today's short session, we'll provide a brief introduction to SQL Sentry, what it is, and a short demo tour. We don't have a lot of time, so we'll keep it short. A short demo tour of at least what we think are the highlighted features of SQL Sentry that make it stand apart from its competitors. And we'll also, if time allows, discuss a bit an interesting case study, which is very near and dear to our own heart. So what is SQL Sentry? SQL Sentry is a service-based monitoring agent. And what does that mean? That you install basically a Windows service, which acts as a sort of like the agent for the monitoring apparatus. That service connects to your monitored targets, which would be SQL Server on VM, on-prem, all SQL servers in their flavors, SQL Server on VM, Azure SQL DB, managed instance. And it also has support for analysis services and reporting services. And it can even monitor just regular Windows operating system machines. So this is on the one hand. On the other hand, it stores its findings, metrics, events, and so on to a SQL Sentry database as a repository, which is a SQL Server database. Now, we also have a couple of user interfaces. One is a Windows-based client, and one is a web-based portal. So both of those are usable. In today's showcase, we'll focus on the web portal because that's the newest thing, basically, and it will have the latest updates. And going forward, if we're talking about the roadmap of SolarWinds SQL Sentry, then this will be the flagship interface going forward. And with time, it will have all of the features added to it that are currently only available in the Windows client. especially stuff having to do with management of the environment. But right now, the portal already has a spectacular set of features, a lot of which are not at all available in the client. But I'm rambling. So you can just try around this thing. There's a public demo provided by SolarWinds. You can see the URL at the bottom. So for those of you that want to try it out, it's completely free, completely public. You can just go in there, play around with the interface, and learn what the type of things that you can take out from it to use it for. When you first open this portal, and this is also the same for the Windows client, you first presented with the environment health overview, which is basically like an environment level health overview based on the average health of all the monitored servers. And we can also drill down per server or a group of servers or a specific site and the score will be adjusted accordingly. And that score is based on, by default, the last 48 hours of events, incidents, and so on. So right at a glance, you can see the current health of your monitor targets based on recent events, basically. Something that, in our opinion at least, makes SQL Sentry stand apart from other monitoring tools is how well it sort of pivots all of its dimensions around the time frame, which is what you see here at the top right corner. Dimensions, when I say dimensions, is what I call these different tabs that you see here at the top, like performance, storage, top SQL. There's also blocking, deadlocks, and TempDB. Okay, so these are sort of like the dimensions, different kind of metrics and events that you can investigate, but all of them, they orbit around this the current time frame that we're looking at. And this is actually not as common in other competitive tools where the time is not the focus, but rather the metric is the focus, and then you need to choose the type of dimension, of type of metrics that you're looking at, and then filter again and again based on the time whenever you switch between these different metrics. In SQL Sentry, it's very easy because the focus is the time frame. So if you want to investigate what happened at a given time, retroactively, sorry, you can just filter on that time slot and just get a 360 view of everything that happened at the time, very easily, very with a very seamless transition. Like just right click on a graph, you can just jump to a specific dimension and focus on that time slot.
Eitan?
Yeah.
Can I say something?
Before
you continue to dive in, I just want to say something important, set some credibility here, because some people might think, okay, he's trying to sell us something. He's trying to sell us some monitoring tool. I just want to say, Eitan is not a salesperson. He's not a marketing guy. He and his team are working with this tool for many years now, solving lots of problems for many customers. Eitan is very, very technical. He knows SQL Sentry very, very well, and he loves to use this tool. So you should listen to what he says from a technical perspective. Okay, forget about selling or marketing. Okay, I just wanted to say that.
Sure.
Go on.
Okay, thank you. Right. Okay, moving on. So this is an example. I'm right click on something, moving between dimensions, and I'm looking at the, like, as I said, on the same time frame to better investigate and understand what happened at a given time, which makes it very easy to perform root cause analysis, basically to identify the root cause for something that happened at some point in time. For example, let's take the top SQL dimension, which is especially important and useful because it helps you identify the relevant SQL commands as the root cause of whatever it is you're investigating. Often what you would do is you would start from a high-level overview known as totals, which aggregates similar commands together to identify broader issues. And then you can drill down into those individual aggregations to see individual executions, and also investigate the execution plans. Yeah, individual executions, then even see the execution plans, the query history of a given execution plan, whether there are spikes and anomalies. And you can download the execution plan for further analysis, and so on. This is not something that very different or exceptional compared to competitors, but in my mind, at least, it's very, very easy to use. And it's, of course, very useful. Similarly, you can very easily identify head blockers using the blocked SQL dimension or blocking SQL. And you can also analyze deadlocks using the deadlocks dimension, including its cool deadlock viewer, or you can just get a raw deadlock XML if that's the kind of thing that you prefer. So these are at least these are the kind of things that most people will consider important in the monitoring apparatus. So that's why I'm showing this. Additionally, another cool feature of SQL Sentry, specific to web portal, I think I'm hearing echo from someone. Yeah, okay, thanks. Another cool feature of SQL Sentry, the SQL Sentry web portal, is the custom dashboard feature, which very easily allows you to create your own groups of charts with whichever metric you choose, and even combine different monitor targets on the same dashboard and even on the same chart. These custom dashboards also feature many metrics that aren't even available in the built-in performance dashboards, the one you saw earlier. So you can, like, another world is open up to you in these custom dashboards, and you can customize them and do whatever fits you best. The rule engine of SQL Sentry's advisory conditions, which is related to alerting, obviously, there is not much meaning to monitoring without alerting, right? So SQL Sentry has an extremely powerful alerting engine that allows you to construct custom advisory conditions. And from what I've seen, at least, it's the most robust and flexible engine compared to any other. It allows you to create anything from a simple condition based on a SQL query and up to a complicated condition combining SQL queries, performance counters, WMI queries, and you can even create nested logical and or groups and calculated expressions. Additionally, you can define rule sets that determine when an alert would be triggered, when it will be re-triggered again, and for how long, and at what time of day, and so on and so forth. And these different configurations, they work in a hierarchy-based method where you would, let's say, create such a condition at a global level that would affect all of the monitor targets under it. But you can also break that inheritance and customize those settings for specific server, for a specific group of servers, for a specific site, which it's an amazing level of customizability and flexibility, which is just brilliant for a company like Madera that, as an MSP, provides service for a lot of customers, right? So it's very, very easy. Speaking of which, let's talk about our case study of our own managed DBA service known as DB Smart, where it's basically our flagship managed service, and it owes its huge success mainly to SQL Sentry's robustness and flexibility. We, at first, when we started this this service, we did like a sort of survey. We tested and demoed and tried out lots of different tools to be used as our monitoring platform. And SQL Sentry is literally the only monitoring tool that answered all of our requirements that we have for monitoring many customer networks and easily managing them. And thankfully, using SQL Sentry, we can very efficiently identify the root cause of any issue in a monitored SQL server. And if we find something new, we can construct an advisory condition based on our findings, so that we can then proactively identify similar issues in all of our customers' monitor targets, and obviously customize per server or per environment if that is also needed. I think, how are we on time? How long did that take?
20
15 minutes, 20.
15,
Oh,
20
right
minutes.
on time.
You're
Good
on
job,
time.
me. Okay. Excellent. So now is the time for Q&A. I think we can spare something like 5 minutes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Before we move on to Richard. So if anyone wants, now is the time to ask questions. I'm here for you. If anyone in the crowd is considering SQL Sentry or competing monitor platforms, now is the time to ask. Hi.
Hi, it's Oz from Tipalti. I'm using DPA, SolarWinds DPA, and I'm considering to move to use SQL Sentry.
Right.
Few questions. Does the tools give you a recommendation of a bad query plan, or this is one question. The second question is alerting. Can you elaborate a little bit more about alerting, monitoring, if something going wrong with the always on or something like that? If you have, if you can set up any alerting on that.
Yeah, sure. I'll start with the second question first, with your permission. So the alerting engine in SQL Sentry is, as I said, it's very robust. It comes when you first install it, it comes pre-installed with like a default set of alerts, basic alerts. I don't recall exactly. I think it's something like 20-something alerts, and it also comes with a whole category of alerts called fail-safe alerts, where that's where you would fit in things like the SQL Server is unavailable, the replica is unhealthy, there was a failover, a job has failed, and so on. And you can, of course, set up and configure alerts for each such an event type or a condition. And when it comes to alerting, so that the alert types, alerting channels that are supported in SQL Sentry are email, SNMP signal, and execute something like execute a SQL command or an executable, run a job, execute a PowerShell script, and also just log it into the repository of the SQL Sentry so that you can review it for later. The other question, oh right, you asked about the recommendations and such, right? Whether it offers up recommendations and okay.
In DPA we have anomaly detection graph, and you can view all the anomalies per hour.
Right.
You have it also here.
So the anomaly detection in SQL Sentry is very, very basic. It's not as advanced as DPA, and I guess Richard will talk about it in his session maybe. It's not as advanced, but it does allow something that's called a baseline comparison. So you could like look at a graph and then it's not available in the web portal, but it's available in the client, in the Windows client, and you can see like a baseline based on like the last time frame or the last week, the last month, and so on, and it shows you like an overlay of both time frames. There aren't alert types that can be used for this, at least not today, but I know that it's on the roadmap to implement it. And when it comes to recommendations, so SQL Sentry, its target audience are DBAs, are people that are already experienced in SQL Server. So it gives you all the data, all the information that you need to reach your own conclusions and to find the root cause and draw from that your recommendations. It doesn't do the thinking for you. It just gives you all of the data and all of the tools to understand as a DBA the problem from every direction. I know that DPA does have like a recommendation engine, and there are some very few monitoring tools, competing monitoring tools that have similar recommendation engines, but nothing's gonna beat like the experience of an actual DBA person. And I've seen many instances, including in DPA and those competing tools, that they show like a very, very general, high-level recommendation for an issue, but it's often not good enough to actually resolve the issue. Usually, their recommendations are very broad and like generic. So honestly, nothing really beats the experience of an actual DBA person. But this in the SQL Sentry, I think, is excellent to empower this skill.
Yeah,
If
I agree with you. When I said recommendation, I mean to sometimes DPA can alert, look, this query is doing a scan instead of seek, and maybe you can add an index or change the query, something like that. That's why I meant when I said recommendation.
yeah, I get it. There isn't a current engine like that in SQL Sentry, unfortunately. But like I said, you can. It focuses on actual impact. I mean, you could have a query that has a scan, an index scan, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a problem. But if you see a query in SQL Sentry that has, let's say, lots of reads, lots of or a high duration, then you would start investigating. Okay, let's take a look. What does this query do? Let's do a deep dive, look at that execution plan, and it would be your job as a DBA to, draw your conclusions from that. But it doesn't do the thinking for you, as I said.
Yeah, thank you.
Are we on time? Do we have time for more questions?
Thank you. If there are, of course. We have a few more minutes. Guys, any other questions? I guess not. So, Richard, would you like to start?
Yes, sir. Okay. So I'm just going to
Fantastic.
do a quick intro to DPA and then show the online demo site. So this is customer facing. I'm just going to put this in the chat box as well so people can play around with it. And thanks for that, Ethan. That was a good comparison. So yeah, you can kind of actually already see the two different use cases, why you might choose one tool over another, right? So like Ethan was saying, SQL Sentry is that professional DBA tool that doesn't want the recommendations. He just wants the all data so he can make the decision himself. Whereas DPA, I would say, is more like the accidental DBA or even the sysadmin or something like that. And it's also multi-vendor. So I'm going to, and I might just knock this just for bandwidth issues. If I just share my screen quickly. So you guys can see my screen now, correct?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, so yeah, DPA is the, let's say, yeah, the more accidental DBA or the sysadmin tool. It's multi-vendor, so it really does target those database environments that have more than just Microsoft SQL Server. Okay, And I'll also actually send the full list of supported databases in the chat. But as you can see quickly at a glance, I actually have these groups broken out. So maybe you've even inherited some databases. You've got Microsoft SQL Server, Oracle would be the two big ones. Of course, MySQL, Postgres, DB2, but you can also do MariaDB and so forth. So it is a Java application, right? So purely web-based. Again, multi-vendor. So you can install it on Windows, Linux, or even in the cloud. For the repository database, you can use SQL Server, Oracle, MySQL, or Azure SQL DB for the repository database as well. And what I will say about DPA, rather than focusing on, let's say, the underlying infrastructure like SQL Sentry does, it's purely weights-based focused, okay? So pretty much what DPA is doing is it is kind of recording the amount of, or search, should I say, it queries the amount of time that those queries are spending their time on, of the activity between the query request and the database response. Now, it is also agentless like SQL Sentry, which gives us a less than 1% overhead on the targets we're looking to monitor. So incredibly fast and lightweight. And as you can see, on the top left here, we can just see the instances with the highest wait time, more of a trends chart, right? Indicating what instance had more weights than the other instances on that particular day, as well as what's trending up and down from that weights perspective. A quick status summary. So again, that one pane of glass where I can see all the instances within my environment to see, do I have any issues? So now I'm no longer jumping around to different servers, different environments to kind of run my own custom queries to see what's going on. I can instantly come in here, my status summary, and say, okay, well, do I have any wait time issues? If I do, let's click it, let's filter, and let's bubble up the most or the relevant instances within my environment experiencing those issues. I can also double up those filters. So I'm now looking at all my instances with wait time and memory issues. Now, of course, for smaller environments, that might not be as relevant. But again, we can still see at a glance, do we have any of those issues across my environment? And of course, then all the instances that I've added in DPA in my environment. Toggle into groups. So again, these are customizable groups. You can set them up how you wish. I've just done it by database technology that allows me to easily navigate. And if we maybe expand SQL Server, I can see the instances, my quick action functionality, and these weight bars. So this is, again, that one quick glance to see, okay, well, do I have any anomalies in my environment? That machine learning that was mentioned earlier, okay? No anomalies at the moment, but what this is doing is just showing me also the health of my environment. So these green bars indicating those anomalies. So green, obviously no anomalies, yellow, warning, somewhat out of range, red, critical. And the more green bars I have here is also indicating how noisy my environment is. So the more bars here, the noisier it is. The one with the least bars has the most cumulative weights, and the one with the most has the most weights. Again, those tuning, CPU, memory, disk session alerts, as well as the VMs. And Oracle, we can also see those pluggable databases as well. Now I can dive into any of these tabs from here. We'll probably touch on a few as we go through it, but I'm just going to dive straight into the instance itself. Give it a second. This is customer. Actually, maybe I have my VPN on. Let me kill that guy. So again, this is customer facing. So again, sometimes it can run a little bit slow depending on who's using it. Okay, so by clicking on the instance name, it dives into this view here, which is going to show me up to the last 30 days worth of weights. It's queried every second. After those 30 days, we're rolling it up into hourly information that we store for 90 days. And then after that, we're rolling it into daily information that we store for 5 years. So I always do tend to refer to this as the main chart, just because it's going to show us all the information on that instance, okay? So all my top SQL statements. And each bar that we're looking at here is representing a single query. So by hovering over it, it's going to give me the information on the SQL, how many times it was executed, average execution time, and what percentage of weights was that query on that day. Now we are showing the top 15, which we can see from the right here. And also, again, if I hover over this guy, I can see my SQL hash beginning with 519. So I can also match that to the right. If I click on this, it will dive straight into that query detail for me. Now, again, we're going to come back to this screen. There's quite a lot going on here, but just note you can kind of access it from multiple different ways. Now, while we're looking at top 15, now you can edit this. So if you want to include more, you can do. But we can also do a quick find SQL for anything lying outside of that top 15. I could do maybe a quick word search lookup, just select something basic. So it's going to show me all the queries with the select in it. Of course, I could filter that down to get it more granular. That calendar view, and I can export that as well. But I can expand it to see the wait time, statistics, the executions, wait time per execution, and the full SQL text as well. Of course, again, that hash that allows me to dive into the query detail of that particular query. If I jump back to my trends view, I can now start to navigate across the trends in my environment. So maybe from a weights perspective, what are the top weights in my environment, right? A lot of green here. Again, I can match that to the right, indicating memory CPU. So again, hover over memory CPU, which is probably honestly the healthiest weight type I want to see across my environment. But maybe I can see maybe this this blue guy lock MX. Okay, I can come in, select this, understand the description, what it is, who it's resolved by, and the solutions to resolve that particular weight type within my environment. Now this goes into quite good detail. I won't read through it, but just know how you can access those quick descriptions and solutions. As well, maybe memory CPU, right? A few solutions there to help resolve that weight type within my environment, or at least get an understanding. The top programs. Again, this is just a demo environment, but of course, I always recommend get that trial up and running because it's going to show you more relevant data within your environment, which makes it a hell of a lot more interesting than my demo environment. Machines, database users, files, drives, as well as those plans. And we'll come into those plans as well with the inefficient steps that get discovered from the tuning tab. But if I jump back to my SQL tab and scroll down, here we have that anomaly detection. Okay, again, that informational button to help me learn more about it. But what we're saying is maybe January 12th to 13th, I have a decrease in weights. Okay, so at a glance, I might assume that that's a good thing just because I've less weights than the previous day. But again, that anomaly detection letting me know that, wait a second, that's still out of range from my environment. Okay, so again, that critical out of range, red, warning, yellow, somewhat out of range, and then green, normal, perfectly fine and well within range. Then I might have that big increase in rates, right? Let's just assume this is like a payroll software. So it would be normal to have that extra activity at the end of the month. And again, I might assume it's something going on there, but again, that anomaly telling me that's perfectly fine, normal, and well within range for our environment. So that machine learning, letting me know, and it also takes into account the seasonality of the data based on previous trends. Is it a spec or not? Okay. Again, that machine learning aspect from SQL Sentry would probably come in from the disk forecasting perspective. So both tools have their own machine learning, but from different angles. Okay. If we scroll down, do we have any advisors? Looks like I actually have a critical one showing that this query, and this is actually a friendly name, so we can also give those hash names friendly names to make them more identifiable, accounted for 24% of instance execution time, that plan indicating that full table scan. Of course, read more, we'll dive into the query detail for me, where I can see those advisors here. Now again, I'm going to come back into this in more detail, just to touch off what else we're looking at here on this page. So also those resources. So if I want to line those resource metrics up with my metrics above, and again, I can also add those additional resource charts. So again, depending on what I'm troubleshooting or what I want to see from my environment, maybe I want to add a bit of TempDB in there, I can do. Again, it comes with those informational to see, okay, well, page life expectancy, if I had a spike or something, what are the solutions I can start looking at? The full SQL text on those queries above, hash name. Do I have any blocking within my environment? Okay. And so this is going to show me any blocking trends as well as deadlocks. Now, deadlocks requires extended events to be enabled. Once it is, you're going to get that full deadlock summary, which you can also export and send as an email as well, maybe to your developers or something like that. Do you know what? Let's actually focus on January 19th, just because it's quite a amount of blocking, bit of anomaly. I think it might be actually interesting just to do a quick dive into this data and see what's going on, right? So what I can do is I can actually click on the day. It's going to dive into the information of that day and show me it per hour. So, okay, I had a bit of blocking, had a bit of anomaly, but when throughout that day did I have it? Okay. Now I'm looking at an hour interval here. Of course, I can change that, widen my view. And I can see maybe, let's have a look at my blocking. Okay, maybe 2 p.m. with the highest amount of anomaly, and probably worth taking a look there. So let's click on 2 p.m. and dive in a little bit deeper again. Okay, so now I'm looking again at all the top SQL queries that ran at that time to see which had the biggest impact. Looks like this guy here. I can hover over, I can see that SQL text showing me that that truncate table was being run, okay? And again, what he spent his time waiting on. Maybe a little bit of wait time from these guys, maybe not too much, but definitely this looks like the culprit from my anomaly detection. And then I can start again going through these trends views at this level as well. So again, which database was affected or had the most weights? What was that top weight type across my environment at this time range? Again, those programs, users, machines, as well as the sessions, as well as that additional tab now called blockers. So I can expand my blocker here. I can see the waiter, the SPID, blocking time calls and waited in seconds, the user, program, machine, as well as the SQL and the wait type. By clicking details, it's also going to show me the SQL statement executed by the blocking session. And again, I can still dive into this to jump into that query detail. Okay, so that leads me then to the tuning tab. So highlight in red here, so indicating I've got some critical tuning. So again, those index advisors, query advisors, and table advisors. Maybe I want to drop down and have a look. Okay, well, what was a comparison to yesterday or the day before? What did we have? If I just pick one of these guys just to dive into it, let's get a time range. Okay, so now I'm looking at the top weights for this query or this time range to see what had the biggest impact across my environment. Okay, and of course, look, this will always show me different information depending on the query it's analyzing. But of course, I can come down again, my query advisors indicating that full table index scan, and I should investigate adding or modifying an index. I can open my plan from here as well, and again, looks like 4 hours and 19 minutes within that time range we spent waiting on memory CPU. Do I have any table tuning advisors? So I'm going to dive into one of these as well, but at the moment it looks 2 index recommendations, 2 inefficient steps, same with the second guy. And I'll actually pull up an example with an index recommendation just to show you guys. But before we go into that, if I scroll down, I can now see my statistics chart. So this allows me to do some pretty nice correlation along my weights versus my statistics to see, okay, well, did an increase in wait time, did that come from maybe an increase in average execution time, or did it come from an increase in total executions? So we're looking to see here, what are the factors taking up that total wait time? We can also add again rows processed, physical reads, and logical writes as well. Again, blocking, line up my blocking, as well as plans. If multiple plans were detected, we would see that. And again, those instance resource metrics or other different metrics that we can add, again, depending on what we're troubleshooting or what we want to see from my environment. Tick the box, you've now added that additional chart. We also want to see what's the full SQL text here, as well as that supporting data. Okay, so the databases, the users, files, machines, and the programs as well. Jump back to my intelligent analysis. And we're actually, let's jump on this guy here. Okay, so by clicking on this, it's going to show me my table advisors. Now I'm actually going to show you guys a quick other way to get to this as well. So we're on this instance here, we're on the tuning tab. So this would be the same method as if I came in from here, right? So I'm looking at those advisors, but I'm looking at the advisors now through the query advisors. Workers. As you can see, I'm now looking at the different table tuning advisors. So of course, this is a nice way to encapsulate the query advisor and the information from the related queries using the same tables. A lot of information here on one screen. And I can see all the different queries on the left here and the inefficient SQL on the table with the relative workload of these guys. So of course, I'm going to get those biggest wins in performance by tackling the query with the highest relative workload. And then I can also see what the wait time was. Okay, maybe this guy's not a great example. Let's jump back to this guy. Okay, yeah, he's got a higher workload, wait time, executions, read per execution, rows per execution. So quite high there. And we can also then see those inefficient table index access steps discovered by DPA. So maybe step 17 and step 10 using that index scan. View the plan. I can see it from here, hover over, download, export. But again, if I had an index recommendation, it would also suggest that to me from here as well. See more to see, okay, well, maybe the index scan is not the best solution, right? Or not the best step. Should I add a where clause? Maybe I need to update my statistics. But if I get maybe this guy here, we see we got that one recommendation. Now, these are SQL Server recommendations, but we can see the projected impact of me implementing this particular index recommendation. So show index DDL, copy the clipboard, obviously, of course, test it, make sure it's going to give you the desired outcome. And then if you wish, apply it. And we should be able to see that from the plan here as well. So that plan advice showing me that missing index with the impact of me implementing that. If I jump back and scroll down, and you know what, this other guy's a better example now. So if I scroll down, of course, if we're going to recommend indexes, we want to see all that index index information of the current indexes. So I can see my existing indexes. I can see maybe if there's a bit of fragmentation, but I can also see if I'm meeting all the best table tuning practices. So DPA straight away, again, those easy wins in performance, right? Am I meeting all those best tuning practices? So do I have a foreign key that's not indexed? Do I have any overlapping indexes, wide indexes? Does that table have a primary key? And does that table have at least one index? Okay, so it looks like I've only actually got one of the five here. So here straight away, I can actually see, okay, well, here's where my overlapping index is found. This is where my wide index is found. This is the table that has no defined primary key. And here I can see where that foreign key is not indexed. So again, quite powerful again from that perspective of DPA. Again, you can always jump back historically and look at that calendar view. If I jump back, we're going to jump to storage IO. Okay, so within the storage IO, again, DPA focusing on those weights, right? So what amount of weights here relate to IO weight? So maybe if I scroll down, I can see maybe on January 22nd, again, demo environment, so not as active as you would like, but let's have a look. About 1% total wait time, right? So if this was mostly green, that would indicate to me maybe storage would be an issue. Same with my right, but we also have the current tab here as well, which allows me to see the top files on the C drive. And it's just a really nice way to view that read and write latency within my environment. And the current tab. So this is really nice as well if I'm currently investigating any performance issues. Okay, so maybe I have a couple of end users complaining that the system's getting slow. Maybe they've gone to the network guy and he's telling me, look, it's not the network, it's the database. So what I'll do is I'll come straight in here to see, okay, now can I see what queries are causing the most user wait time in the last hour? Get some evidence here to go back to the network guy to say, look, it's not the database, it's you, man. So I can also see those long running average queries. So all the queries with the highest average execution time in the last hour, as well as the most executed. I can also come in, I can dive into these as well, of course, dive into the query detail, but I can see any of those currently active sessions, as well as currently blocked sessions, okay? Now this is a demo environment, so you can't see it from here. So again, I would recommend that 14-day free trial. If I jump to the resources tab, again, this allows me to see any issues with my CPU, memory, network. I can see those critical issues that are detected. I can see, again, those different time ranges. Maybe a line CPU here. Yeah, so we do have out-of-the-box thresholds. We can modify those, change those. Of course, each environment is totally different. So But we can also, again, toggle those baselines to see what's in range or what's normal from a baseline perspective, represented here by that solid gray bar going throughout my chart. Now, what is cool about DPA is there's normally a little settings tab here. I can't see it from here just again because it's customer facing. But what it will do is it will allow you to create your own custom SQL query to pull back those custom metrics. So if there's a particular metric or chart here that you don't see, but you want it from your environment, as long as you come up with that custom SQL statement, you can pretty much chart your own stats here as well. Okay. And then that kind of leads me then to an alerting perspective. So on the top right here, alerts. Now, you won't see this when you first set it up. This is just because I've got a few of those alerts set up. And this is just pretty much the status details of those alerts. So I can come in, see the status of it, the database, the last evaluation, the alert definition, the history of that alert. But what's more interesting, especially when you're first setting it up, is top right here, manage alerts. So this allows me to create and build out those alerts within DPA. So they're already preset. We just don't have them active. Reason being is we don't want you guys to suffer from alert fatigue, whereas you install it, boom, you've got 100 alerts. If all alerts are happening, then nothing's important, right? So you actually get to select the ones first that are most important to you to make sure you're getting the most value. So any of those wait time alerts, as well as those anomaly detection alerts, those machine learning ones. The resources alerts. So you can do a single resource metric, all metrics in a category, which we just covered from the resources tab. Admin alerts. So again, this is based on database technology. So we can see maybe the specific Oracle, SQL Server, MySQL, depending again of which environment you're looking at. But again, if there's a particular alert, just like the SQL Sentry, if there's a particular alert that you want to see from your environment, but you don't see it out of the box, you can create those custom alerts. So again, I can do numeric, Boolean, and let me see if I have a quick example here. This is a custom one here, right? So what it's going to look like when I click that create alert, we're going to see the type, description, alert name, whether or not it's active, the execution interval, right? So how often am I going to go out and check the value of that? Okay, assign the instance I want that alert to evaluate against, and then come in with my custom SQL statement. So in this scenario, it's a numeric, and then I can choose to execute that against the monitor database or the repository database. And then set up that custom alert level notification, right? So is this custom alert high, medium, low for me? Or maybe it's just informational, right? Maybe it's just, I just want to be notified on something once an hour, once a day, week, month, whatever it may be. Set your recipient, hit OK, and we've now created that custom alert within DPA. Now, DPA supports the trap as well as send email. So, of course, again, you get that integration into third-party applications using that SNMP trap. So if you use a ticketing system or something like that, for sure, we should be able to support that. And then, of course, if I have any blackouts coming up, right? So maybe I have a server going into maintenance mode. I don't want those false alerts. I can create a blackout period just so I'm not getting those false alerts as well. Of course, you can set up groups and then reporting as well from DPA. There's actually some quite nice ones in here. So I'm just going to pick one at random. Actually, which one is actually, you know what? I'm going to use my favorite one. If I do top weights for a single query. So maybe I'm coming in here, I'm investigating that troublesome query. Okay, I can just do a quick search here. I believe we used this one in the example. So I'm actually going to use that guy. Preview report. So now I can see that, okay, not a great example, but I can see the top weights for that guy for across all the different days, different the executions, process, physical reads, logical reads, and logical writes. So of course, reporting quite handy for those trends, maybe even from management perspective, they'd like to see those type of reports. So we can also set them up as schedules to make them automatic as well. Maybe top SQL for a single weight. So maybe I know I'm experiencing a lot of high memory CPU, right? So let's do a quick high memory CPU one. I want to investigate across my environment. Memory CPU, hit OK, preview report. So now I can see all the queries that are spending some sort of wait time on memory CPU. Look, of course, you can always come in, edit this, show more statements. We can give a more detailed range. Maybe we want to do per quarter, per month comparisons. We can also, again, that hour range, make it more granular, save that report. I've now created that in DPA. I will quickly as well just touch on the fact that because it is multi-vendor, there is some slight different functionality for the other vendors, just based on the database technology, right? So I might just quickly show you guys an Oracle perspective as well, as it's usually the most second highest requirement for monitoring. So of course you can come in here. Now you see the tabs are slightly different. So let's have a look. Maybe if I jump into tuning, we're not going to get those index advisors or recommendations for Oracle. And then for let me jump back. Let's say maybe a MySQL as well. So while we do support it, from a tuning perspective, we do support it from a query advisor perspective. Now, again, it is on the roadmap, so it is constantly being developed and worked on, the same as SQL Sentry as well. So I know we're at the time there, so I will pause and see if there's any questions, and if that sparks anyone's interest as well from a database monitoring tool.
There's a question in the chat, Rich.
Yep. Is that from you, Visar, is it?
No, it's from AK.
AK.
Yeah, for sure. You have the blocking alerts, absolutely. Yeah, and then what it's doing, so yeah, it's quite, yeah, every second. So what it's doing from SQL Server perspective, it's executing queries against the DMBs. And that's how it's able to be, let's say, so lightweight and so fast in order to have that, let's say, real-time data. But you're not going to see the, let's say, the trending charts as you would on SQL Sentry, right? The way it moves from an infrastructure perspective, let's say, purely from await states.
Other questions, guys?
Yeah. If we are using SQL Sentry, then we want to install the DPA. Does it use the same database as SQL Sentry or another one?
There are two standalone products at the moment. So separate repository databases. Now, of course, yeah, as you've seen this, there's advantages to having two tools. They do have like that they marry very well, should I say? But at the moment, they're still very standalone from that perspective.
So that means that, sorry, that means that we're going to need an additional servers for the use of the DPA. Okay. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
No, wait. Additional servers, I think not necessarily, because you could use the same SQL Server instance. Just it would have two databases, one for the SQL Sentry and one for the DPA.
I mean, yeah, but the requirement for, sorry.
Yeah, no, Ethan's right. You could do that but also from a, let's say, I guess, a performance perspective, maybe, but it depends on the spec of the machine and everything.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I just want to say that about the requirement for SQL Sentry, it says that it needs only 4 CPUs or something like that. Very low infrastructure. So that's what I want to know. Okay, thanks.
No problem. One thing to note as well, DPA does have that integration into the overall platform, SolarWinds platform with HCO. So again, if it is something of interest or you do have other SolarWinds products, DPA does plug into that.
There's another
Can
question.
Can we query data older than 30 days from DPA repository database?
Should be able to, yeah. So it does hold on to the data for quite a while. So after 30 days, we roll it up so it becomes like SQL Sentry, less granular. So it stores it then for 90 days, and then after that, up to 5 years, I believe. So you can play around with the settings tab to tweak some things as well.
Anything else? All right.
Both super products, guys. Both have their own, I suppose, use case depending on your own business needs. But I would highly suggest that you lean on Madeira. They are more experts than we are, and even though we're the vendor, if you want to call it that, so I would definitely lean on the guys for either or from a query perspective, or if you're looking for them to do the heavy lifting for you. So any questions like that, feel free to reach out to any of the guys at Madeira. If you guys want to do a free trial of either solution or play around with the demo environment, have any questions, get an idea of pricing wise, we price per instance, anything like that, just feel free to reach out to the guys any day, anytime, or if maybe you want to set up a one-on-one conversation with your own business needs and your own database environment, and they can have a look at that too. So anything like that, that's maybe piquing your interest following what we've spoken about today, please feel free to reach out.
Also,
Thank
just
you,
going to
sir.
put in the link, the supported databases that DPA supports as well.
Yep. Thank you, Richard and Eitan, for a very fascinating showcase.
Thank you.
Really interesting.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Right,
Thank
good
you,
day,
guys.
everyone.
Quiet day.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.